The reason for that is that HBO has a new show. The new show is called Transhood. Here's the description. Filmed over 5 years in Kansas City, Transhood chronicles the lives of 4 young people aged 15, 12, 7, and 4, and their families as they navigate growing up transgender in America's heartland. 4 years old, transgender. I almost was not going to even play this clip on the show because it's so disturbing, and these degenerates who filmed it and who participated in it, these adults should be in prison. But it's on HBO, it's out there, the clip has gone viral, and I suppose just like putting up images of a crime are helpful to nabbing the perpetrators, I think we should probably publicize this clip that's already out there so that we can bring this to the public forefront and so that laws can be passed to make this illegal. Take a listen.
Good morning. Today we choose to recognize, honor, love, and celebrate anyone here who would claim their identity publicly as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning, intersex, pansexual, asexual, or any category that I've left out.
This is Phoenix.
Phoenix looks like 4 years old. Looks like a little
shy.
girl.
Do you want to tell everyone if you're a boy or a girl?
I just want to tell them that I'm a girl.
Okay, you can tell them that. Okay. Phoenix would like you to know that she's a girl and she prefers she and her pronouns. Let's go this way.
May you be well, safe, and whole. We honor you exactly as you are.
This is so wrong on every single level, and every adult in that room, first of all, a law should be passed against this. If you can't use current child abuse laws, you should create a new law against whatever this is. You should prosecute every single person in this room, every adult. You should throw them in prison, and you should throw away the key. That's it. Little River does not want to tell people that this little boy does not want to tell people that he's a little girl. He manifestly does not. He says he's too shy and he leaves, he walks away. And then his sociopath mother takes the microphone and says, my little boy is a little girl. And then these perverts, all in a what is obviously a religious ceremony, a leftist religious ceremony, tell the little boy that he's a little girl, and they give him a little flower. Now, this is a religion. There actually is a term for this, which is called Gnostic dualism. It's a heresy that I thought was snuffed out in the West over 1,000 years ago, and it apparently wasn't. It's the idea that your physical body has nothing to do with your true self, which is purely metaphysical. So your body can be entirely male, for instance, but your true metaphysical self is female in some way. It's a ridiculous religion, but it is a religious view. These sickos are foisting that religious view on these children and convincing them and confusing them into believing that little boys are little girls and little girls are little boys, and seriously inflicting psychological damage on them. And there are some people in this country, there are some people in the conservative movement who look at this and say that it is a blessing of liberty. I kid you not. People who, they call themselves libertarians, but I wouldn't call them libertarians because I think that's offensive to actual libertarianism. And I'm not a libertarian myself, but this is something even more shallow and degraded to say that, oh yes, Thomas Jefferson and George Washington would love a bunch of adults abusing little children and convincing little boys that they're little girls. That's what they meant when they described the blessings of liberty. That is not what they meant when they described the blessings of liberty. And there's a real issue on the right that we need to deal with and snuff out, which is this mistaken belief that we are not allowed to have any views on moral matters. We're not allowed to have any, and we're certainly not allowed to enforce any views, because you can't legislate morality or some other bumper slogan nonsense. Of course you can. Not only can you legislate morality, you necessarily legislate morality. All laws legislate morality, from laws about the death penalty down to parking tickets. All laws weigh in on moral questions and come to moral conclusions and enforce those moral conclusions on the country, on the people. And it's, in a way, it's the right's fault that we got this. The left are the aggressors, so I don't want to victim blame here. You know, the real victims are the kids. But it is, in a way, conservatives' fault. Because what we said is, when we were approached by this radical leftism, which basically goes under the name of political correctness, when we were approached by this, a completely new standard, a moral standard, a religious standard, a standard of speech, a standard of behavior, a standard that said, I'm going to have drag queen story hour and twerk in front of 4-year-old kids. I'm going to have men put on dresses and twerk in front of 4-year-old kids, and I'm going to convince 4-year-old kids that the little boys are little girls. When we were confronted with that, instead of pushing back and saying, no, that's wrong, it's morally wrong, it's physically, factually wrong, and we're not going to tolerate that, what we said is, well, you know, look, you have your standard, and we have our standards. And there's no way that we can possibly discern between the two. There's no way to discern between good and bad. There's no way to discern between things that lead to human flourishing and things that lead to human degradation. There's no way to discern. So we're just going to throw up our hands and say, you do you. And we do it all in the name of, say, free speech, for instance. A lot of people are defending this child abuse on the grounds of free speech. Child abuse is not free speech. And in a way, it's our fault, because for a long time, maybe 2 decades now, conservatives, right-wingers have taken this very shallow and inaccurate reading of what free speech means in the American tradition to suggest that it means you can say anything at all, anything whatsoever. That is not true. That has never been true, and conservatives have not believed that except for the past 15 or 20 years or so. There have been whole swaths of speech that have been illegal in America from the very beginning, and nobody's disagreed. Sedition, threats, fighting words, fraud, all manner of speech. Obscenity, obviously. Obscenity has been illegal from the very beginning. We don't enforce it very much anymore, but it is. This is obscene. This is worse than obscene. This is abusive. And there's nothing hypocritical about conservatives calling that out. And the longer we cowardly, in a cowardly way, stand back, throw up our hands and say, well, I can't criticize what you're doing to those kids, because then, look, if I criticize you for transing the kids, you might criticize me for taking my kids to church. Okay, but one of those things is good and one of those things is evil. And we can discern. We have rational faculties. There is objective truth. I know that's unfashionable to say. We have faculties of reason. That's also unfashionable to say. And we can discern, not always perfectly, but pretty well, between what is good and what is evil, using those faculties of reason. And we can enforce those views in the political sphere. That's what politics is for. Our founding fathers sure would have understood that, and I can't believe that we are permitting this right now. That should be illegal. We should not ever, ever permit that in this country. HBO should be boycotted, that this movie should be taken off of the air, and the people who not only produced the movie, forget that for a second, these parents should be prosecuted. I hope you enjoyed that short segment from the Michael Knowles Show. Be sure to check out the full episode linked in the description, or download the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts.